White House counselor Kellyanne Conway is painted as the top leaker in President Donald Trump's administration and as a cartoon villain brought to life in an explosive new book by former aide Cliff Sims. Sims, in his forthcoming memoir Team of Vipers, recalls how, when he helped Conway respond to criticism from Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski, he inadvertently found out she was speaking to the press about the president and her West Wing co-workers. His recollection paints an unflattering portrait of the advisor. It became hard to look long at her without getting the sense that she was a cartoon villain brought to life, he wrote in an excerpt published by Vanity Fair. Conway seemed to "be perennially cloaked in an invisible fur coat, casting an all-knowing smile, as if she'd collected 98 Dalmatians with only 3 more to go." Sims, a former campaign aide who joined the White House communications team, left his job in May and received a 7-figure offer for his tome, Team of Vipers, My 500 Extraordinary Days in the Trump White House, which comes out January 29. Excerpts from the book have already popped up in the press ahead of its publication. White House staff were said to be concerned about how Sims would portray them in his tome, and Conway is an early target. She was content, very content, to sit back, go on TV, and let rivals eat one another alive, he writes of the White House advisor, claiming she talked frequently to reporters from the outlets the president frequently bashed as fake news. Sims recalls how, in May 2017, the Morning Joe hosts claimed Conway would trash-talk Trump during the campaign when the cameras were on, even as she defended him on air, a charge Conway wanted to dispute. So she called Sims up to her office to help her draft a response. He hadn't brought his laptop, so she told him to use her personal MacBook. Sims wrote that as he tried to craft a statement for her, he was distracted by the non-stop stream of messages popping up on the screen. It turns out Conway's message account was tied to both her iPhone and her laptop, which caused her texts to turn up on the computer's screen. Over the course of 20 minutes or so, she was having simultaneous conversations with no fewer than a half-dozen reporters, most of them from outlets the White House frequently trashed for publishing fake news, Sims wrote. He noted she spoke with reporters from the New York Times, The Washington Post, CNN, Politico, and Bloomberg. And these weren't policy conversations, or attempts to fend off attacks on the president, Sims wrote. He claims she bashed White House advisor Jared Kushner, then Chief of Staff Reince Priebus, then White House counselor Steve Bannon, and then White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, all by name. She also recounted conversations with the president in her talks with reporters. She was talking about him like a child she had to set straight, Sims claimed. Conway offered a response to Vanity Fair about Sims' book excerpt. "The real leakers, past and present, get much more positive press than I do. While it's rare, I prefer to knife people from the front, so they see it coming," she said. The magazine claimed the statement was drafted in consultation with her husband, George Conway. George Conway, however, disputed his role in his wife's defense, saying he never saw the statement. "I never saw this statement, let alone helped draft it. Nor was I aware of the book excerpt to which it responds until a short while ago," he tweeted Wednesday evening. Sims' book is the latest in a string of tomes, Bob Woodward's Fear and Michael Wolff's Fire and Fury, that portrays a chaotic White House. His account, however, has the weight of being written by a former staffer who was in the center of the storm. Sims was said to be inspired by George Stephanopoulos' memoir All Too Human, about his work in President Bill Clinton's White House. The excerpt published by Vanity Fair also details how President Trump was obsessed with his media coverage. Trump's greatest fear wasn't death or failure or loss. It was obscurity. If he was noticed, he mattered. And he didn't care much if the attention was good or bad, as long as it wasn't indifferent, Sims wrote. He recalled how the president was obsessed with White House staffers who leaked against him. He noted Trump got a prominent White House reporter on the phone to ask him who the sources were in an article written by the journalist. The reporter declined to name them, but Trump, Sims claimed, tried to cut a deal. "Well, I guess that's fine," he quotes Trump as saying. "But, of course, you know I could give you so much better stories, So much better. But the journalist declined and hung up without a hot scoop from